half hours to get from Columbia to Jeff City this morning.
I sat for 2:15.
Semi-truck with cattle fell over on the triple underpass just inside the bridge.
Which it wasn't even on the road, so why did
I know, but
I know, I
pull it
saw it
onto
this
the
morning.
road and block traffic?
in Jeff City.
How
Someone coming out,
else were they gonna get it?
had a doctor's appointment this morning.
If I don't
blissfully
hear the name
coming
of
out.
someone getting fired tomorrow, I'm going to be pissed. Someone needs to get fired.
Bring, okay, Todd, a tractor trailer semi full of cows has fallen over.
Didn't they
Do
all
you-
die anyway?
Do you have a way to fix this quickly? I mean, you have to get someone to go out and sort out the injured cows and the dead cows and the okay cows. I mean, you can't put cows on a fire truck. You would need a flatbed. You'd have to get the cows out of the thing onto a new truck.
Flatbed won't
If
work.
only they would have just crashed on the bridge and then jumped over like they
I
did the
mean,
last time.
I need a vet, I mean,
Hey, diddle diddle. The cow jumped over the Missouri Bridge.
They jumped off the Rochefort Bridge the last time.
now, the city administrator in Jeff City's been on the job for 6 minutes.
I do like it.
So welcome to Jeff City.
I think it was a MoDOT thing though, right?
I'm sure JCPD helps. Yeah, 3 hours myself.
Oh, I missed all sorts of stuff.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Alderman Lewis.
Here.
Alderman Wilson. Here. Alderman Old.
Here.
Alderman Bell.
Here.
Alderman Plank. Here. And Alderman Bocart.
Here.
All right, can I get a motion to approve August 1st, 2023 meeting minutes, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to special items. Jeff Chitwood, regarding court in Chitwood presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having me here this evening. My goal tonight is just to go over the fiscal year 23 audit report with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot those out to me. If I don't know the answer, I will research and get back with Shelley or Darla. I'm Jeff Chitwood, a partner in the Boonville office of Jury Court in Chitwood. We performed this year's audit. I did want to thank Kyle, Darla, and Shelley, and among the other city employees who helped out. We ask a lot when we're here for those 7 or 8 hours during the day, so they do a great job. As evidence, your fiscal year, and obviously is April 30th, and I'm here August 15th, so they were able to get the information we needed on a timely basis to get the audit report filed. So I did want to thank all of those guys. Hopefully you have your audit report in front of you. I'm just going to kind of go through that, not in a lot of detail, but I'll kind of summarize it. The first few pages are your audit opinion. The city's financials are presented on a modified cash basis of accounting. We gave it what we call a clean opinion. It's called an unmodified opinion, but it's the best opinion you can get, saying that the financials are materially correct in our opinion, based on the modified cash basis of accounting. So those are the first few pages of the audit report, pages 1 through 3. After that, it's kind of the meat of what you probably want to look at, the actual financials themselves. And the way a governmental audit report is set up, it kind of goes from the most general to more detailed back behind. So the first few pages are the most general of all the financials themselves. The statement of net position is your balance sheet. It lists out, according to governmental activities and business type activities, your assets and any liabilities we would show that are presented on the modified cash basis. It also lists out your net position, which in the business world is your retained earnings or your equity. So governmental is called net position. So down at the bottom there, you can see separated out between governmental and business type activities what the ending net position of the city is. On page 5 is the government-wide income statement of the city. It's called the statement of activities. It's again broken out between business type and governmental activities. There you can see kind of the ins and outs, revenues and expenses of the city, The governmental activities, change in net position for the year, was $621,000. The business type activities change in net position was, increase of $507,000. So you can see going from, prior year to this year, kind of your revenues and expenses in general terms based on those kind of categories, the governmental activities and the business type activities. Starting now on page 6, we get into a little more detail. These are your governmental funds, and these are split out by major fund. Those are based on calculations done based on your assets or revenues. And then all of the other non-major funds are lumped together there in the other governmental funds column. So this is the balance sheet of the governmental funds of the city. So you can see there the major funds this year were the general fund, the street fund, and the new fund, the ARPA fund, accounting for all of your ARPA monies that were received. You can see there, I think the city still has almost all of their ARPA money that they have received as of April 30th sitting there waiting to be spent how you see fit. So that is a new fund this year I wanted to point out compared to prior years. Page 7 is the income statement of the governmental funds, again broken out by major fund and listing all the other governmental funds together. So you can see the revenues and expenses there in each of those particular funds for the year. And tying this statement back to the previous government-wide statement as well, some reconciling items that are shown on the government-wide statement that won't be shown on this governmental fund statement. A couple things I just wanted to point out there. The general fund balance, as you can see there, ended the first column with $1.4 million. One thing we kind of do is compare that to your general fund expenditures for the year, just to kind of see, you know, if you had no more revenue coming in the same number of expenditures next year, what your percentage would be. This year the percentage was 94%, which is good, which is almost a full year's worth of expenses. Last year it was around 72%, so it went up a little bit more even over last year. So that's something we kind of look at. Overall, the governmental funds was over 100%. It was 147%. So it's a good ending fund balance in those governmental funds. It's good, healthy fund balance, and something we just kind of glance at to make sure it's not something we want to point out as something that's troublesome. Starting on page 8, we go through the individual major funds of the governmental funds and do a budget schedule for those. So you can see there's the general, street, and ARPA funds are all there. So you can kind of see the inflows and outflows in those particular funds, compare those to your initial and final budget. Do a variance report there to show what changed from your initial budget to your final budget, and then compare that number to what actually occurred for those particular funds. So those go up to page 10. And then we go into the enterprise funds, water, sewer, sanitation. Those are your business type funds, normally run like a business in the city. So you have customers and you pay for things to upkeep the systems and things like that. Page 11 is the balance sheet for the proprietary or business type funds, and then page 12 is the income statement or change in net position for those funds. If you look on page 12, you can kind of look towards the bottom there, the net income for each of those particular funds. The water fund showed a net income of almost $53,000 for the year, sewer fund of almost $389,000, and sanitation fund of $65,903. So overall, on the business type activities, the net income for the year was $507,000 combined, which is again is a good indicator and a good balance for the city. Page 13 is the cash flow statement for those business type funds, and it just kind of shows you the cash not taking into account other things such as depreciation and things like that. What your cash inflow and outflow were for the year. So those are all listed on page 13. And then the footnotes back behind, start on page 14, and go all the way to page 34. Those list a little more detail on just some general information of the city, as well as some more detail about those balances that were in the governmental or enterprise funds as well. So there's some cash footnotes, some equity footnotes, debt footnotes, fixed assets footnotes, things like that to kind of give you just a little more detail of what's up front in the actual statements themselves. And then the final part I wanted to kind of point out of the actual financials themselves are those non-major funds I talked about earlier, the governmental funds. start on page 35. So you can see the breakout between the court fund, park fund, stormwater tax fund, and capital projects fund. That list of detail of those that are shown kind of together in the earlier statements. So you can kind of see what makes up that balance sheet on page 35 and then the income statement on page 36. Those are just typically the smaller funds of the city. And then budget statements for those particular funds are there as well for you to look at. It does the same thing as the statements that I talked about earlier with the general fund, the street fund, and ARPA fund. And then the last page of the audit report is the compliance and internal control section. That is where we would list out if we had any material weaknesses of the city that we found when we did our audit or significant deficiencies. We would list that in our compliance and internal control section. That would be on the second page, which would be page 42. So you can see there we did not have any of those this year to report. We've had some in the past, so it's good not to have any of those this year. We don't obviously look at every transaction. We do sampling is how we do audits. That's how financial audits are done. So obviously we don't go in looking for things that could be wrong, but if there are things that come to our attention as we're doing our audit field work to make sure those financials are materially correct, we would investigate those, point those out here, and let you guys know about that in this particular section. So we didn't have anything there once again this year. Everything went smooth, as I mentioned before. So that's the actual audit itself. As alderman and mayor, management of the city, you also have an audit communication letter, which would list out anything, if we had anything further to discuss with you, which we don't. As I mentioned, everything went well as expected during the audit. I think the city, financial wise here, looks like it's doing all right. Do you have any questions? No, we went over that decently fast, but if you do get a chance to look at this and you have questions for us, please feel free to call our office. Shelly and Darla have our number here. Any one of our 4 partners in Boonville will be happy. We all 4 worked on the audit, so we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Good work, Shelley.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough task being a governmental accountant and keeping things up in a city or school or wherever you are. It is not an easy thing with different funds and making sure everything goes in the right fund and that kind of stuff. It's not just like a business where everything's all together. The different funds and what you can do in those particular funds makes it a difficult task. So it's a testament to anybody who can get through that and make sure that audit process goes smooth for us, because there's sometimes that doesn't happen. So it's nice to have that, for sure.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
All right, moving on to appointments to boards and commissions, none. Scheduled public comments. Christina Colbert, enforcing of the city code. Please approach the podium, state your name, address, and before you get started, we will have to limit everything to 3 minutes tonight.
That's fine. My name's Kristen Colbert. I live at 405 Arlene Drive. I spoke at the board meeting held on July 18th, just 2 days after the second annual Pride Festival. As I mentioned then, is there something more important on your phone? No. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I did prepare this to speak to you guys. So if we could start my time over, I would appreciate that. As I mentioned then, I have nothing against having a Pride Festival, if that's what they choose to do. But I expressed my concerns regarding the activities that took place at this event, and I made a call to action from the board to enforce the city code, specifically City Code Chapter 23. As I mentioned at the Pride Festival, there were drag queens dancing on tables, taking money from children, stripper poles, or what some would call fitness poles, in the public park, which, as I expressed at the July 18th board meeting, is not only inappropriate, but it also violates Ashland City Code Chapter 23. I was unable to attend the August 1st board meeting, but as I was able to tune in and listen to the response from the city attorney and a particular board member, the city attorney specifically stated that adult entertainment is almost entirely defined as nudity. Although that may be the case for some of other cities, Ashland City Code Chapter 23 is very specific about what is considered adult entertainment and has several definitions. I'd like to read one specifically. That would be D, adult entertainment cabaret. Means an establishment where a regular and substantial portion of its business is providing adult entertainment which features strippers, male or female impersonators, go-go dancers, or live performances or material which is primarily characterized by and emphasizes on specified sexual activities or specified anatomical areas. The definition of a drag queen is a person, usually a male, who uses drag clothing and makeup to impersonate and often exaggerate female gender signifiers and gender roles for entertainment purposes. If you did not see the performances at the Pride Festival, I have a video from a patron of the event showing sexually suggestive dance moves from these drag performers while taking money from children while dancing on top of picnic tables. Is that not a scene that looks like something you would see at a strip club? How is this appropriate to expose our children to? How is it appropriate to have these activities held in our public park? Again, I pose the question, if we let this happen at our public park, what's next? Our public schools? Regarding the stripper poles in the park, which mind you did have people performing on them, it's my understanding that these are from Muse Pole Fitness Studio, which is located in Columbia, and is a fitness studio that uses a pole to promote strength and fitness. In order to attend a fitness class, you must be at least 16 years old with the consent of an adult or 18 years of age. If the studio has an age requirement, is it really appropriate for our elementary, middle, and high school students to see a stripper pole or a fitness pole and think health and fitness in a public park? Exposing our children to these types of activities is not acceptable. At the August 1st meeting, a specific board member commented that the board had received several emails about this and implied that the board had bigger, more important public safety issues to deal with. Isn't the purpose of a board of aldermen to serve the citizens of this community? That means all issues at all times, big or small. We elected you to represent us. I'm going to ask all members of the board to please be mindful of that. This specific board member also said that this Pride Festival isn't going to happen again until next year, so we don't need to keep talking about it. Now that it has happened once, are you sure this won't happen again between now and next summer? The Ashland Fall Festival is coming up. Will Muse Fitness Pole be there with stripper or fitness poles in the park? Will there be drag performances on top of picnic tables? How can I be sure I won't be exposing my children to inappropriate behavior at any community event that is held in the park going forward? It was also proposed by a specific board member that we host our own event in competition with the Pride Festival. Do you really think that is in the best interest of the city to have two events with communities of opposing views and opinions to host competing events? That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, and I can't imagine Ashland PD would support that. And that would only continue to create more division in this community. This board member also stated that it is a waste of our taxpayer dollars every time we need an opinion from the city attorney for something we don't like. Addressing the concerns of the community, no matter how big or small the concern, is not a waste.
Thank you for the comment.
If you have that in writing, can you provide that to Darla for the record?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing, tax levy public hearing.
So this is our annual public hearing to set our property tax levy here in Ashland. As you will recall, as part of the sales tax ballot measure in April, we did include language in that ballot measure that we would reduce our levy rate this year. So as part of this property tax hearing, we'll be able to hear from the public on that, but just for the board. As you'll see in your packet, that includes reducing the rate down to 18 cents and some change per $100 of value, and that's down from the $24.04 that it is this current year. Our max allowable rate for this hearing is $23.99, so 23 cents per $100 of value. So that is a slight reduction already, but as you recall from the ballot language, it was a 25% reduction on current rate, so the $24.04 is what we're using for this calculation. With that, I did include some anticipated revenues based on that levy rate of $176,000, 534. That'll be a reduction of close to $60,000 on current or on proposed max allowable revenues, and a $24,000 reduction on compared to current year, just for awareness. So we kind of already knew those numbers going in. We had discussed that in great detail when we were talking about the ballot measure and what implications that would have as part of this reduction. So there's the information for you. You're welcome to open the public hearing and hear any comments.
Any public hearing comments? Any questions for Kyle? Can I get a motion to approve?
Just go on to the next
Next one.
council bill item. Yeah, we don't need anything for the public hearing.
Well, on Council Bill number 2023-028, an ordinance establishing a property tax rate for the city of Ashland, Missouri for 2023, amending Chapter 5 tax rate Appendix A-1 of Ashland Municipal Code.
This is the first reading. You'll have both readings tonight so we can get it approved prior to the September 1st filing deadline. So nothing to add there. Again, we're reducing that by 25% from the current levy rate. So that'll take it to 1803, so 18 cents per $100 value.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Ode?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
And Alderman Booker.
Aye.
Council Bill number 2023-029, an ordinance to change the zoning of a parcel of land from R1 to light industrial and R3 for Corey Myers Development LLC. Staff report, please.
All right, this is regarding a request by Corey Myers Developments LLC for the rezoning of Forest Park Phase 3, Plat 3. Submitting firm is Engineering Surveys and Services. The subject property is approximately 41.75 acres in size. This parcel is east of Perry Avenue and southeast of Ashley Drive, and it basically sits just south of Forest Park Phase 1 and also Phase 2. The current zoning classification is R1, single-family residential. Proposed zoning classification is R3, high-density residential, and IL, light industrial. Earlier this year, city staff met with Mr. Myers and his engineers about a potential development on this parcel. His desire is to split the parcel into 2 zoning districts. The proposed districts are currently defined by legal description. The west and center of the parcel are to become IL, light industrial, and the east and north are to become R3. The 2020 comprehensive plan accounted for this parcel to be zoned R1, and in April of 2018, all phases of Forest Park were rezoned from IL to R1. The intent proposed for this plat is to allow any permitted and or conditional use allowed by code in the appropriate districts. This would allow the developer flexibility to build out the parcel as desired. Staff is indifferent regarding the zoning proposals. A case could be made for or against this parcel being rezoned. Given the recent public opposition to R3 zoning, it would be understandable for the board not to approve. However, given the proximity to the new Rankin Technical College, it could be desirable to have apartments available for student housing. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted not to recommend due to the disregard for the future land use map and the inability to properly access this site at this time. There are currently no roads accessing this parcel, but there are to be some in the future. And the engineer from Engineering Surveys and Services, Corey, is here, and also the owner, Corey Myers, is here as well. So if you have any questions.
I've got a copy of the plat, and this is what I'm trying to do with it. I kind of drew on there what was going on. Yeah, crown, yeah.
Just as a quick point of order, the preliminary plat is item D under introductions and first readings, so if you do have a lot of questions about it, we probably save them for that item and focus on the rezoning. This at least gives you an idea of what he's proposing though.
So when do we think the road will go in that?
So the phase 2 of Forest Park is currently under construction, and they're working on building that to the south. The extension of Ashley Drive really could happen at any time. Corey Myers would obviously have to work with that property owner to the north in order to be able to extend that street far enough to be able to access to Ashley Drive. It's understood that a second point of access, which is shown in the middle of the property on the exhibit that Corey just handed out, would need to be developed before substantial development could take place on the property. You would need that second point of access, but an initial phase could be completed with just an extension off of Ashley Drive. I do have a couple other points in response to the recommended denial from P&Z. Part of that denial was based on the fact that it doesn't exactly fit the comprehensive plan and the zoning on the comprehensive plan. And I would like to point out that the comprehensive plan is intended to be more of a guide than really the, law of what's to be zoned. Just a couple of excerpts from the comprehensive plan. Section 1.1 says it should be utilized as flexible document to be interpreted with a broad spectrum of land development possibilities and ever-changing conditions. Obviously, when this property when that future land use plan was developed, Rankin wasn't here yet. We didn't know what was gonna be developed in the area. So there's been changes to the area. There's been, items that should be reconsidered about how this property is used. And I believe the proposed zoning is supported by the surrounding area. It's contiguous to currently R3 zoning. It's contiguous to commercial zoning in the Rankin and adjoining areas. So I think the zoning we're proposing here fits. And there are a couple different, in section 5, it also again points out that the comprehensive plan should be a guide, it should be flexible, should be viewed with a broad overview of how this, lot should be developed. The comprehensive plan goals state that facilitating the development of new market-driven and market-rate housing, the city should continue to encourage the development of a wide range of housing options. The city should encourage the development of well-planned residential areas that include a wide range of well-built housing units representing various types of housing. The 2017 community survey that was included as part of the comprehensive plan noted that the city of Ashland actually has the lowest amount of multi-unit housing of anywhere in any city in Boone County. Unless I'm mistaken, there are no R3 properties in the city of Ashland currently that are undeveloped. And there was also points made that, this plan is the preliminary plat. There will be more detailed documents that come forward in any site plans, that the city will have an opportunity to review any site plans that come forward in the future. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if anyone has.
Any questions?
What was it specifically that the P and Z board didn't like? I mean, specifically about in terms of the master plan and things like that, what was it they were honing in on?
I wasn't able to attend that meeting, so I can't speak specifically to the exact concerns expressed. I know, understanding from the report from the city, it was the fact that it didn't match the comprehensive plan. And as I've noted, the comprehensive plan is certainly intended to be a guide and not, the law. The comprehensive plan also notes that when you have, an R3, you should consider, buffers. There are natural buffers to the site with, there's streams and wooded areas along 3 sides of the site that, naturally buffer it from existing R1 properties and existing residential properties surrounding it. So there's natural buffers that do exist that would be maintained. with the development. They, I believe, pointed out that there are, the point with the current site access issues that would obviously have to be addressed prior to any developments and would be addressed with further site plans of this property. And as I mentioned, an extension of Ashley Drive. It would be a short extension of Ashley Drive to serve this property in the initial phase, and then an extension to the west. I think there was some concerns from the, also about just the preliminary nature of this submittal, but it is a preliminary plat, that the details of the plan would come at a later stage. And again, the city would have an opportunity to review any plans and any site plans for development on this property.
It's 4-3.
4-3.
Is the access off of Ashley Drive, is that already on property that you own or in partnership? owning, or-
It's a dead end street there.
Well, I'm just talking about where it crosses over into,
Where you see that?
like I know where the duplexes are,
Yeah.
but where it crosses that line.
No, we butt up to it, so, that gets extended, and it'll go into phase 2, and then off for phase 3, it turns off there, and goes to phase 3.
It is a portion that has been preliminary platted as an extension as part of Forest Park Phase 2.
What I remember from the meeting is another concern was that second access. Has any progress been made in getting access to cut through on that to get?
I have easements through Rankin and the other 5 acres to get another road through there. It's always been in.
And that would be at the
At the edge of Rankin, right?
Yeah,
edge of, like right where the pink line turns right there?
no, that's where I'm wanting to do a walkable,
Right
a
here.
sidewalk for.
This is what you're talking about, right?
No, I have that up right here.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. He's on this page.
Yeah, there's an easement through here
Yeah.
and back to there.
So that's where, that's on the south side of Rankin.
But we met with the fire marshal, he said we could get so much done before we needed to get that second access through.
So it wouldn't come straight through to.
Save that for.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion approving Council Bill number 2023-029, an ordinance to change the zoning of a parcel of land R1 to light industrial and R3 for Corey Myers Development LLC? Any motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll say it.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Flake?
Nay.
And Alderman Bogart?
Aye.
4-2. Thank you. Motion carries. Council Bill number 2023-030, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Missouri to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipalities officials. Staff report, please.
This is Darla's cup of tea.
Yes, I have to. State statute requires that each city, with the annual operating budget over $1 million, have to have the option to adopt an ordinance policy resolution disclosing the potential financial conflicts of interest. And the city must re-adopt the ordinance every other year at an open meeting prior to September 15th.
Any questions for Darla?
So this is no change, this is just a continuation of what we've done in the past, right?
It's the same facts you had. It produces a obligation for you aldermen and the city administrator to report various conflicts of interest. that are largely reflected in the nepotism statute.
And this allows us to file a shortened PFD as opposed to the full, correct? Yeah.
I suspect so. I don't want to guarantee that, but that sounds right.
I get a motion approving Council Bill number 2023-030, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Missouri to establish procedures to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Owen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Moving on, Council Bill number 2023-031, an ordinance approving Forest Park plat number 3, preliminary plat, please. Staff report.
All right, this is regarding approval for a preliminary plat of Forest Park Phase 3, Plat 3. Property owner is Corey Myers Development LLC. The committee firm is Engineering Surveys and Services. Christina Liebert of Liebert Engineering performed the review. Okay, so it's the same parcel we just discussed, same location. When originally annexed, this parcel was anticipated to be R1. This proposal currently has Lot 2 as one 20-acre parcel intended for high-density residential. The remaining lots ranging in size from 1.2 to 4 acres are intended for light industrial. It is anticipated, as I said before, that sometime this fall, there will be a street completed to access this site to the north. This street, as part of Forest Park Phase 2 improvements, will tie Yellowstone Drive to this site, while also connecting to Lakeview Estates. Though a traffic study and stormwater are not required for preliminary plat, it was strongly encouraged given the nature of the proposal. The engineer assured me that a temporary turnaround would go in for the dead-end street to the south. City staff, again, is indifferent to this preliminary plat. However, it is staff's belief that this submission has met the intended requirements set forth in the city code. And the Planning and Zoning Commission voted not to recommend for various reasons, as before, two of which were lack of proper access to this parcel and lack of a clear plan for build-out, which is not necessarily required at this time.
And I would supplement the director's comments. And this is something that I think a lot of cities struggle with. How much detail does a preliminary plat need? There's an argument to be made. We think we're gonna have a square here, all the way up through full engineering, architectural details. It's also a situation where planning and zoning faces a similar ambiguity. Their job is to help understand the details. They do a nice job. They give it a lot of attention. But to me, my estimation is, it is a preliminary plat. And at some point, it seems counterproductive to insist on specificity of detail that belies the idea of a preliminary plat. I don't wish to recommend for or against it, but simply to draw attention to the idea that it is a preliminary plat.
Any questions for staff? You have a question?
My only concern is still that west access, that it would only make sense that would shoot straight through to Perry Avenue rather than having to wind through.
Right, and
Can you address?
I would certainly agree with that. That would certainly be the preferred route. Obviously, that's a little bit out of control of the developer of this property. But hopefully in working with the property to the west, he can come to a resolution on a straight extension. Obviously, as I've said, any plans for an extension of that street or further planning of that property to the west would also have to come before the city. But I do appreciate Mr. Smith's comments on the nature of the preliminary plat. And the one thing that, as a developer, or as an engineer that works with various developers that we've seen in various cities that require a lot of detail up front on a property before you can even figure out whether you're gonna be able to zone that property correctly for the use, if you spend thousands of dollars going to an engineering firm to develop full detailed plans and then get shot down on the zoning, you've just wasted, tens of thousands of dollars. So, I think as the city of Ashland, I think, we want to be encouraging and supportive of developments. And I think this development has the potential to bring some additional commercial and also other businesses to this area.
I already have a couple that are lined up back there. So,
Okay.
I think it'd go good with Rankin and kind of put everything together.
And those that are penciled in,
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah,
it's something that,
yeah, I'm
it's
working
not
on it.
just
No, it's not.
not just an idea,
I'm
it's
working
a-
on it, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm really just kind of waiting on this to go forward
Gotcha.
to finalize it.
And again, that second access would be required before, a substantial development could occur on this property because of fire codes and the access points.
Any other questions?
That's all I have.
All right. Can I get a motion approving Council Bill number 2023-031, an ordinance approving Forest Park plat number 3 preliminary plat?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
No.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Nay.
And Alderman Bopart?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to old business. Ordinance number 1448, an ordinance to change the zoning of a parcel of land from general commercial to residential R3 for Nicholas Martin William and Kimberly Martin. Staff report, please.
All right. So this is the second read of this. So this property, is basically just South Main Street. It's second,
The old car wash.
the old car wash. Everybody knows where it is. To have it rezoned to R3 from commercial. And, this was a tie vote, P and Z, and it's the boards approved it at the last meeting. So, his intentions are not necessarily to, build, I think his intentions are to build some quality apartments that may not go for cheap rent, but as stated before, there is not a lot of R3 zoning in Ashland, so. That's pretty much it.
Any questions?
I do want to make one clarification. When this came up at the July 18th meeting, I did make some statements about some of the comments of planning and zoning. I want to make it clear that not everyone on planning and zoning had the same mindset when it came to low-income housing. That was mainly only expressed by one council member, and if what I stated made it sound like that was the majority of planning and zoning, I want to correct that in the record.
Any questions?
And I would make a further comment, and this is a very subtle point. I don't wish to cast aspersions on the staff report. It's a very subtle point. But it is my legal opinion, when a P and Z body ties, they have no opinion, as opposed to voting against it. You see the distinction? A tie vote equals no opinion. So that's my view of what this board should take their tie ruling. They don't break ties in P and Z votes. It's a tie vote, the motion failed. But it doesn't mean we vote against it. I know that may seem like a semantic difference, but I would make that comment.
Can I get a motion to approve ordinance number 1448, an ordinance to change the zoning of a parcel of land from general commercial to R3 for Nicholas Martin, William B., and Kimberly Martin?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Brocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Ordinance number 1449, an ordinance to change the zoning of partial land from general commercial to light industrial, Timeless Treasures of Columbia LLC.
All right, this is another, second read of the rezoning, and this one is for the one, it's, 5 acres off of Hardwick Lane. It's storage units, and, if you remember, it was because of they originally zoned CG, and they should have zoned light industrial in the first place. So this is basically wanting to rezone from CG to light industrial now, so that they can have access to a temporary gravel lot in the backside of the property. So staff was supportive of this rezoning, and the Planning and Zoning Commission approved this also. It's pretty simple one. Any questions?
Can I get a motion approving ordinance number 1449, an ordinance to change zoning of a partial land from general commercial to light industrial for Timeless Treasures of Columbia?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
And Alderman Brocart?
Aye.
Ordinance number 1450, an ordinance to change the zoning partial land from general commercial to light industrial for Larkin Powers, Liberty Lane.
All right, so this is a request by Larkin Powers, to rezone the property that is now CG, that sits just north of, C.L. Richardson's property, and just on the south side of Liberty Lane. And, it's 9 acres in size. The current zoning is CG, wants to switch it to IL, and staff is supportive of this rezoning. The reason he wants to switch to IL is it's just more flexible in zoning for what he can do to build out. And the Planning and Zoning Commission approved of this at the July 11th meeting, and this was approved also on first read.
Any questions? All right, can I get a motion approving ordinance number 1450, an ordinance to change the zoning from partial land from general commercial to light industrial for Larkin Powers?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Brocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Ordinance number 1451, an ordinance establishing property tax for the city of Ashland for the year 2023, amending chapter 5 tax rates.
Second reading of the new business item.
Got it. Any questions? None? Okay. Can I get a motion approving ordinance number 1451, an ordinance establishing the property tax rate of the city of Ashland for the year 2023, and amending chapter 5 tax rate appendix A1?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Brocart?
Aye.
Moving on to ordinance number 1452, an ordinance of the city of Ashland, Missouri to establish the procedures to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials. Second reading.
Yeah, second reading.
Can I get a motion approving ordinance number 1452, an ordinance of the city of Ashland, Missouri establishing procedures to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials?
So moved.
And a second,
I'll second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
And Alderman Brocart?
Aye.
Moving on to new business, a resolution authorizing the appropriation of funds to certain accounts within the fiscal year budget.
Due to staff shortages, the police department has seen an increase in overtime, depleting the overtime budget. Additionally, after the workman comp audit was completed by Missouri Employer Mutual, They invoiced an additional premium due to the total number of hours worked and claims filed. For streets, after the workman's comp audit was completed by Missouri Employer Mutual, again, an additional premium was invoiced due to the total hours worked and the claims filed. And for water, additional advertising costs for requests for bids. Overtime hours for the police department is exceeding what was originally budgeted, with only 17.77% left in the expense line 1015 5001. This expense line needs increase to allow flexibility in scheduling and continued funds for overtime expenses for the remaining of the fiscal year. There is currently no expense line to reduce to supplement this. Staff is requesting an additional $9,000 be added to the approved fiscal year 24 budget for 10/15/5001. Additionally, after completion of the worker comp audit in July of 2023, an additional premium was invoiced by Missouri Employer Mutual based on the number of hours worked for the police department plus claims filed. This additional premium was $991.05. This was not budgeted in the original fiscal year 24 budget, as these amounts are undetermined until an audit is completed. There is currently no expense line to reduce. Staff is requesting an additional $991.05 added to the approved fiscal year 24 budget. With approval, the police budget would increase from $850,962.76 to $860,953.81. For streets, after completion of the worker comp audit in July of 2023, an additional premium was invoiced by Missouri Employer Mutual based on the number of hours worked for the street department plus claims filed. The additional premium was $991.05. There is currently no expense line to reduce to supplement this. Staff is requesting an additional $991.05 added to the approved fiscal year 24 budget. With approval, the street budget would increase from $1,534,408.14 to $1,535,399.19. For water, we're proposing a reduction in miscellaneous expenses 5240, in addition to the advertising budget 5638 by $680 to cover advertising costs for bids and the water quality report, and there will be no fiscal impact for that. For police, a reduced projected general fund revenue balance of $9,991.05. For streets, there's a reduced projected street revenue balance of $991.05, and for water, no fiscal impact. Staff recommends passing the resolution as written.
Any questions for staff? No? Can I get a motion approving a resolution authorizing appropriation of funds to certain accounts within the fiscal year budget?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Wilkart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson? Aye. And Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
A resolution of the Board of Aldermen of Ashland, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute the edited contract with MMLC for Perry Avenue Extension Project.
When the board approved the contract during the July 18th meeting, there was a typographical error that was not caught until afterwards, indicating the incorrect amount in the contract at $499.40 when it should have been $596.40. This is just an effort to correct that typo and proceed as before.
Any questions for James?
I do.
What was the error?
Just on that award amount, so the issue MMLC was having was with their bonding, because their contract documents that we provided them had the wrong number that was approved by the board. So that $500,000 number that James provided was the actual bid amount that was awarded. So they were trying to bond for that total amount, and could not because their signed document had the wrong number on it.
It wasn't our fault.
It would be a GRE typographical error.
Can I get a motion to approve a resolution for the Board of Aldermen of Ashland, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute the edited contract with MLLC for Perry Avenue Extension?
So moved.
And a second? Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
And Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Moving on. A resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement to provide law enforcement services for the Cattleman Days Rodeo.
My cue up.
That's you.
So this is, talking about the rodeo,
Correct.
and, I'm woefully short on context, as you can imagine, but the, my understanding is we have a standard, dollar amount of $75 an hour for added outside of patrol police services. The folks at the rodeo have agreed to pay four officers $75 an hour for the hours needed. And, we have a contract and all that written up and agreed to by the Cattleman Days Rodeo Committee so far. And Officer Rick Smith has done the bulk of the work on that and done a very good job, I think, in communicating with them. And fiscal impact for us should be pretty minimal. We are gonna have, a cop or two work for a couple hours that morning for the rodeo parade, but a couple of those at least are gonna be our part-timers, so very minimal. But the actual rodeo, which will add up to some significant man hours, both Saturday night, or Friday night and Saturday night, will be covered by the, four officers being paid for. And then we'll have our one officer on normally, and then you give me for whatever you already paid throughout the year, so. So that'd be the deal on that. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, we get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement to provide law enforcement services for the Cattlemen's Rodeo.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderman Bell?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Moving on to reports. Irrigation report, have we have another one, any more irrigation issues or nothing?
Nothing at this point.
Okay. And then, Rankin has a breakfast tour Thursday, August 17th at 9 a.m. So if you're not working, you can
That
attend.
is RSVP only, just
Oh,
before it
sorry.
gets too crazy. So that was an invite only. We have 4 slots for the city. Rick is confirmed, Grace is confirmed,
I confirmed today.
Melissa is confirmed, so if anyone else is available that would like to attend on behalf of the city, please take advantage of that.
This is the,
You'll get it down.
yeah.
And then also I want to thank the park board for doing a great job this year for the food trucks. There's a lot of work going on the backside of that we don't see or hear about, but they did a good job on that. And that's my report. City administrator, please.
I believe Darren's report briefly touches on it, but land use development code, so we've been meeting fairly regularly with Community Recode to finalize this initial draft. As we reported to P&Z earlier today, the consultant team will be here September 12th, I believe, is the next P&Z meeting, so they're gonna come out and actually do a live presentation of the draft to P&Z in an effort to try and get some input and feedback from them, so that'll be the first review by P&Z. From there, they'll consolidate those comments over the next handful of weeks before starting to roll out. They owe us, I believe, 2 public input sessions as part of that contract, so there'll be some public input as part of that draft as well, and then we'll get it all cleaned up and bring it to you guys for approval. So still working diligently on that project to get it wrapped up. Hopefully, sometime around end of year is what we're kind of shooting for as schedules permit. That consultant is out of Colorado, so it's not like she can just drive over whenever she sees fit to come present to us. So we'll get her in here when we can and keep moving this forward. Boone County Master Plan, I believe I had mentioned this at the last board meeting, but they do have an online survey available at ourboone.com, so make sure you're taking a few minutes to present on that, or complete that if you can. They also have 2 public presentations coming up on September 12th and 26th. Those details are available on arboon.com. That 12th is a virtual open house, so if you don't want to drive up to Columbia for the 26th session, you could certainly zoom into that September 12th session. In September, we're planning on the 19th to probably have a workshop with you guys, just to talk about wastewater treatment and wastewater treatment facility expansions. We're gonna have Bartlett and West come in to kind of do a presentation on the work they've been doing in the background as part of this anticipated facility expansion. So we're gonna start kind of with them coming in to just further help the board understand where we need to go with wastewater expansion and start gearing up for that forthcoming project.
What time is that?
I mean, it's still up in the air at this point, so probably if you wanna do a 6 o'clock, we can do a 6 o'clock. Kind of dedicate an hour to it if Bart West thinks that is necessary, or we can push that back to 6:30 or 7 o'clock, depending on the overall agenda load that we have. We'll follow that one up with probably another one on October 3rd, in which we'll start talking more intimately about financing of the project. We'll have some more presentations as part of that to kind of get an understanding of potential ways to go about funding this project, since all of the ARPA grants have come and gone at this point for this particular project. We obviously still have our ARPA funds in reserves, knowing that this project's forthcoming, but we'll still need to have some workshop and discussion with the board about financing options and what those look like. 24th, next week, is the teacher appreciation drive-through luncheon. So as a reminder, we'll be down there representing the city. I think we're signed up to be down there at noon, so please feel free to come down if you're available. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Board Bertol's comments kind of touched on land use, so that was kind of a hot topic at P&Z, and then that also was a hot topic this week, or last week at the Southern Boone Economic Development Council meeting. Some of those folks have expressed a desire to potentially see an update to that future land use map. That comp plan came out in 2020, and it was primarily based on data that was collected between 2017 and 2020, so we've seen quite a bit of growth in that time. Obviously, conditions in Ashland have substantially changed in that time, so it may be worth our efforts to try and revisit that future land use map and do an update, if not even potentially consider re-looking at the comp plan. Typically, you only touch those about every 10 years at the earliest, but just due to how much things have changed here in Ashland, it may be beneficial to move that up to a 5-year update, even if it's only a minor update to address some of the changing demographics that we have here, as well as take into account the census data. So staff is kind of having some internal discussions about that to see if it's something that is feasible financially as we look towards next fiscal year and start our budget process. Main Street, for those that haven't been sneaking down there to take a peek, I drove through on the way back up here for the meeting, so they appear to be down to Watson at this point, so over the next few days, they should be able to finish Watson to Broadway. I believe they've already installed the line along the YMCA property. That'll be the looping effort that was part of this project. I don't think they've really started to do much on the side streets of Laurel and Sappington and whatnot, so they'll need to do those water lines as well. And then they'll be on to our paving project, so they're chugging right along there and doing great work, so we're thankful for what they're doing, and I'm sure James has more, but figured I'd chime in on that one since I drove through and took a look.
All right.
That's all I got.
Moving on to the city attorney's report, please.
Very briefly, it's notable news in the municipal law world. The city of Branson had been aggressively attempting to ban drag shows, something that's been brought up here and of interest to the community. I should point out, Louder Law represents Branson. They ultimately neglected to pass an ordinance to ban it. And that was a major thrust in Missouri. They were probably the most prominent. If you Google it, there are lots of news stories about it. But 4 days ago, their board decided to not ban drag shows. That's my report.
Police chief. Monthly report.
I'm still short on context, but no, you got the just the open monthly report there. And again, I wish I could tell you more about it, but I don't have much in the way of historical knowledge. But since I started on July 26th, we've had one police officer, one full-time officer has resigned. We've had another one that started from a neighboring agency, started on August the 7th. and has been in field training that's been 2 weeks now, and doing really well. Very impressed with him and all of our officers so far. And we have another one due to start in mid-September, who is currently an LETI in our employ, but he's in the academy. I've met him, again, very impressed with him so far, just on an initial meeting. And we have one applicant in the pipeline, also an existing police officer from another agency. And no, I've not been out actively stealing. I'm not saying I'm above that, I'm just saying I haven't been yet. Dave's got that. But, again, so basically just kind of a 1 month, where am I kind of deal. I've been very impressed with our police officers, the ones we have. They want to do the right thing, and hopefully, with some luck, I can help provide a framework for them to do that even better. That's what we would like to see. But anything good that comes out of our office will be those police officers out there on the road, out in the bad weather and hot weather and everything else, and late at night. And to give you a little background, it's a moot point now with the overtime, but we're covering 24 hours a day with 3 people right now. And the math for that, if you have an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday business and you want to add a body, you hire a body. But if you're 24/7, 365, holidays included, it takes about 6. The last study I saw on it was 5.9, something like that. But by the time you account for, we do have to let them take some time off. The law says we have to talk to Todd. We got to let him take off. They get vacation, of course. You got sick leave, holiday, on training, state mandated training. So by the end of the day, to add one person 24 hours a day takes 6 people. We've been doing that. These guys have been doing that with 3. And so part of where the overtime budget, if you can imagine, today's Tuesday. So at 3 a.m. this morning, an officer went on call. And so he's subject to call from Joint Communications to respond out in uniform in a patrol car and deal with things. At 11 a.m., he showed up physically and is here now and will be here till 11 p.m. And he'll be on call for 12 hours again till 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then we'll work physically till 11 p.m. and then be on call till 3 a.m. And then there's somebody coming in on Friday who will go on call Friday morning at 3 a.m. and be on the hook until Sunday night at 3 a.m. So obviously we're paying those guys some on-call pay. When they do get called out, they get overtime for that. And so that's where the overtime hit has come from. And so hopefully, if we can keep everybody, and I'm optimistic we can, including our part-timers, I've met with all of them. And I've also, I don't want to neglect your Megan Young, the civilian employee, is doing, by my standards, like 9 different jobs, and appears to be doing them very well. So hopefully if we can get all these folks on and keep the folks we have, we will be way better off in terms of we'll be spending straight dollars instead of time and a half dollars to pay folks. So, are there any questions about any of that?
No. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
See you next month.
Public Works Director, please.
Mr. Mayor, let's touch on a couple of high points in the interest of brevity. South Henry Clay Boulevard chip seal is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. We anticipate that being a 2 to 4 hour project. Press release went out earlier today. As long as we don't have any wacky weather come in, I just checked the forecast and it looks like we're good. The park ball field project is complete, and Shelley and Darla have been instrumental in helping with the paperwork aspect of that, which is quite a lot. So they're currently working on the closeout documents for that right now, and we should be getting our refund, our grant funds in to close that out soon. As Kyle mentioned, South Main Street project is going very well. The weather looks like it should hold, and we anticipate that we'll be completing the subsurface portion of that project in the coming days, and then can begin the paving portion. With the overall goal of getting that project completed, at least getting South Main Street resurfaced and opened up prior to the beginning of school on August 29th. One other thing to touch on is with the recent rains that we've had, we have a culvert, a large 8-foot diameter culvert on Angel Lane that has had a catastrophic failure. We're currently working with city engineer, Christina Lubert, and Boone County Road and Bridge to make repairs to that. And that is all I really have.
Any questions for James?
Is that closed Angel Lane?
We had to do a 1-lane reduction. It was for the eastbound lane, so we did a lane reduction. Luckily, Angel Lane, while it has a significant amount of heavy traffic, it's not, the numbers are not particularly high. It's mostly trucks that are accessing the postal hub.
Moving on to community development report.
Well, in the interest of getting, James home tonight as quickly as possible, because he has some work to do, I'll just say, give any questions.
Funny guy.
Any questions for Aaron?
Any new businesses cropped up?
They're in the report there. So CarQuest has changed hands to Napa now, so that is a new business. And the funeral home, which was Robinson Funeral Home before, is now Robinson Yeager Funeral Home. That's a change of hands. And there are a couple other food trucks on there, and some other things. Cobblestone self-storage has opened up. Hardwood Lane storage will soon open up as well.
Any other updates on Boone Corner?
As far as,
Like public, like as far as what's going in there? No? Okay.
I do have a wish.
other than the Domino's, which everybody knows, right? Okay.
Is it gonna be a drive-through? It would be really nice.
It's gonna have a drive.
Yay.
We tried to knock.
But
out
we
drive-through,
encourage
but-
you not to use it.
No, we want a drive-through.
When is the house coming down?
It was supposed to be this week, but I'm sure that rain pushed them back.
Yeah. Soon.
Soon. All right,
Very soon.
thank you. Moving on to Board of Aldermen reports. Alderman Lewis.
No report.
Alderman Wilson.
No report.
Alderman Old.
No report.
Alderman Bell.
No report.
Alderman Blank.
Yes. Just real quick, I just want to say that I'm 100% in agreement with our speaker, Kristen Colbert, who spoke earlier in the meeting. Frankly, I think that the adult entertainment activities that have taken place in our city are really an embarrassment to our city. And we need to do whatever we can as aldermen to prevent those types of things from happening in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you. Alderman Beauclerk.
No report.
Best for last. All right, moving on to general comments by the public. Any general comments? All right, Kyle, you want to talk about we're going to the closed session?
So we don't have any new information for closed session today, so we do not need to go into closed session unless there's a desire from the board to discuss any matters in the closed session pursuant to what's on the agenda.
I promised my son I'd be home to sing him happy birthday.
All right, we'll move on to, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So, or second.
All in favor?
Aye.